The little girl who newly moved in opposite our door had a fire at home. My husband rushed into the sea of fire intending to save people but was stopped by me. In the end, the little girl died in the fire. 5 months later, my husband went crazy and set fire to our house. I held my child who was only 5 days old and called for help. However, outside the door came his resentful voice, "Vivian, if it weren't for you back then, Mandy and my child wouldn't have died, and I wouldn't have become like this. Now it's time for you to atone for your sins." After being reborn, facing my anxiously worried husband, I chose to send him to hell. 01 Facing the thick smoke coming from the opposite door, Stanley was so anxious that sweat covered his forehead. But he was also afraid of being discovered by me that something was abnormal. He was pondering how to speak. I considerately reminded him, "Honey, it seems there is a fire on the opposite side. Mandy is still inside. Hurry up and save her." After saying this sentence, Stanley turned his head and looked at me incredulously. Baby, do you mean that you agree with me to save her?" There was full of uncertainty in his tone. I seemed even more anxious than him on the surface. Those who didn't know might think that the one trapped in the fire now was my lover, of course. Saving a life is not a joke. Hurry up. While speaking, I also gave him a push and pushed the stunned him out of the door. The fire is fierce. I won't go for fear of hurting the child. Husband, you do your best. After finishing speaking, I put on my slippers and ran away without looking back. It wasn't until I ran out of the unit building that I completely collapsed and slid to the ground powerlessly. In my previous life, because of my obstruction, Stanley was delayed for a few minutes. In the end, Mandy inhaled too much smoke and died. Ironically, after multiple investigations by the police later, it was Mandy who set the fire at home by herself. After Mandy's death, Stanley was in a bad mood all the time. During an argument once, he shouted at me in collapse, "If you hadn't stopped me back then, I would definitely have been able to save her." I was startled by his shout. Then he came over to comfort me. "I'm sorry, wife. I just feel so guilty and so guilty. She is still so young." Now thinking about it, Stanley hated me deeply at that time. So until I gave birth to my daughter by cesarean section, he also set a fire for me. Let me experience all the pain that Mandy had endured. But fortunately, God took pity on me and let me live again. In this life, I will definitely change the ending. 020 Dear, what's going on? How did there be a fire when everything was fine? Isn't this Vivian from the 12th floor? Why are you alone here? You are still pregnant. Where is your husband? Seeing the fire, people from the whole building ran out. The speaker was Clara from the 11th floor. Usually I love to do some baking at home and often give some to neighbors to taste. In this way, we have drawn closer. Seeing Clara ask, I immediately squeezed out 2 tears and pretended to be worried. "Clara, it's our opposite door that is on fire. My husband went to save people. The fire is so fierce. How can I live if something happens to him?" Stanley is really confused. His wife is so pregnant and he still goes to take care of others. Clara spoke up for me. After a while, she hesitated and said, "Vivian, it's not that I'm talking too much. Your Stanley is young and promising. You should pay more attention to him at ordinary times." I held my stomach and pretended not to understand. Seeing me like this, Clara said angrily, "Vivian, I'm only saying more because you are about the same age as my daughter. I have seen Stanley carry vegetables and take deliveries for the woman opposite your door several times." "Ah? Clara, do you mean?" "No. Stanley is not this kind of person. He is just too enthusiastic and helpful." As soon as I finished speaking, people around me cast complicated looks at me. Clara was anxious. Seeing that I didn't believe her, she immediately took out her mobile phone and showed me a photo. "Look, these 2 people are almost inseparable. I'm afraid that as an outsider, speaking out will affect your relationship as husband and wife. Today such a big thing happened and Stanley is not by your side. It can be seen that he is unreliable. That's why I can't help but say it." In the photo, Mandy had a shy face. My husband Stanley was holding vegetables in one hand and supporting her waist with the other. It turns out that the two of them have been so blatant at ordinary times. Only I'm like a fool. At ordinary times, when Mandy on the opposite side had something, I always thought it was not easy for her as a little girl and took the initiative to ask Stanley to help her. But the two of them were having an affair right under my nose. Maybe they were still enjoying the thrill of being discovered at any time. What am I? A part of their game? If Stanley is tired of me and falls in love with someone else, he can just tell me directly. I will also let him go gracefully. Why should I end up losing two lives? I expressed my gratitude to Clara with tears in my eyes and then asked her to send that photo to my WeChat. 03 This time, because of Stanley's timely rescue, Mandy didn't have any major problems. She just fainted after inhaling too much smoke. But Stanley in this life is not so lucky. He has burns of different degrees all over his body, especially the right hand is the most serious. Even if his life is saved, this right hand is also useless. When I learned this news, I almost laughed out loud. But on the surface, I still pretended to be extremely grief-stricken. Without tidying up, I just put on a coat casually and rushed to the hospital without stopping. Stanley's parents had already been waiting by the hospital bed, full of heartache. Seeing me come in, regardless of the presence of other patients and their families in the ward, they immediately blamed me. What's wrong with you as a wife? How did my good son become like this when he was with you? Stanley's mother's finger almost pointed at my face. Seeing her mean and acrimonious face, I really don't know how I endured it for Stanley back then. Our family was originally in business. Unfortunately, my parents passed away when I was 8 years old, leaving me a considerable inheritance. Later, I was adopted by my father's good brother. Fortunately, my uncle and aunt are very good people and raised me as if I were their own daughter. When I was in a relationship with Stanley, my uncle told me not to tell his family about my real situation. After all, one cannot be too careful with people's hearts. So, when Stanley proposed to marry me, in the eyes of his parents, Stanley had just started a company and his career was on the rise. As a woman without parents and without a good job, how could I be worthy of their precious son? At that time, I was young and thought that as long as Stanley loved me, it would be fine. Anyway, we didn't live with them. I had endured Stanley's mother's sarcasm before, but now I can't endure it at all. 04 I directly slapped away Stanley's mother's hand, turned around and sat on the stool impatiently and said, "You are asking me? Why don't you wait for your good son to wake up and ask him in person to see what good things he has done behind my back?" Stanley's mother didn't expect me to say this and was stunned for a moment. When she came to her senses, she began to change the topic. "Look at this ward. It's so noisy. How can people live here? Quickly transfer my son to the VIP ward." VIP ward? She really dares to ask. That ward costs 800 yuan just for the room fee a day, not to mention Stanley's upcoming treatment expenses. Besides, if others can live in this ward, why can't he, Stanley? Is he inlaid with gold or diamonds? Okay, we'll move today. I readily agreed. When Stanley's mother saw me agree, she nodded in satisfaction. The anxiety on Stanley's father's face also eased a bit. "You are sensible. Remember to tell the attending doctor quickly and must use the best medicine for my son." Before they could be proud for 2 seconds, I interrupted them and continued, "I have no money." "Do you have money?" Stanley's father and Stanley's mother couldn't smile anymore. "What on earth do you mean? He is your husband. Are you not going to take care of him anymore? Don't forget that you are still pregnant with our Gu family's child. Do you want your child to be born without a father? Oh my God, everyone come and see. My daughter-in-law is so cruel. Her husband is lying on the bed with an uncertain fate, and she doesn't want to spend a penny. Which woman in the world is like her?" At this time, a large number of onlookers had gathered at the door of the ward. Even the patient in the next bed pulled aside a corner of the curtain and pricked up his ears to listen. Good grief, she's starting with moral kidnapping right away? 05 I stuck out my visibly pregnant belly and cleared my throat, choking up and saying, "Now that things have come to this, I don't care about losing face anymore. Mom and Dad, do you know that Stanley has cheated? Not only did he cheat, but he also arranged his lover to live opposite us. When the lover's house caught fire, he ignored me, his pregnant wife, and rushed into her house to put out the fire. That's why he is in such a state. Now you still want me to take care of him? Everyone, give me a fair judgment. Is there such a reason in the world? After saying these words, people around all showed contemptuous eyes. Yes, such a shameless man still wants his wife to pay for his treatment. Dream on. I say, that mistress should be responsible. A trace of guilt flashed across Stanley's mother's face, but her mouth was still very tough. What are you talking nonsense? Even if my son has something on the outside, it's just for fun. Which man doesn't have a few flirtatious thoughts? This is all your fault for not being able to hold my son's heart. As she spoke, she became more and more confident. Anyway, my son is still your husband now. As long as you are not divorced, you have the obligation to take care of him. This medical expense should be paid by you. This is true, but how to take care of him is up to me. As for Stanley, as long as he is given some medicine to keep him alive. Anyway, even if I search all over my body now, I only have 3,000 yuan. At worst, I'll give it all to him. Consider it as doing a good deed. While we were arguing here, a heart-wrenching cry came from the door. Stanley. Mandy rushed out from behind and threw herself directly on Stanley and burst into loud cries. It's really hard for her. Now Stanley is wrapped in gauze all over. Stanley, what's wrong with you? Open your eyes and look at me quickly. I'm Mandy. Mandy's big teardrops fell down. Those who didn't know might think she was Stanley's wife. She held Stanley's other intact hand and cried so hard that she could hardly catch her breath. Stanley, you mustn't have anything happen. Our child can't be without a father. The onlookers were stunned. The patient in the next bed may feel that listening through the curtain is not enough. Simply, he directly opened the curtain to listen. It was Stanley's mother who reacted first and gave Stanley's father a look, who was close by. Stanley's father immediately carefully pulled Mandy away from Stanley. How can you, this little girl, talk nonsense? Our son doesn't know you at all. Unfortunately, Mandy couldn't understand the implied meaning of Stanley's father and became even more aggrieved. Dad, I'm Mandy. Stanley took me home for dinner last Mid-Autumn Festival. Didn't you say that Vivian hasn't come back to have dinner with you on Mid-Autumn Festival for so many years? Only I am the daughter-in-law in your minds? Oh, so Stanley's father and Stanley's mother both know about Stanley's cheating. Last Mid-Autumn Festival was originally the anniversary of my parents' death. That year, they had a car accident on their way back from outside on the day of Mid-Autumn Festival. So I don't celebrate the Mid-Autumn Festival. Stanley has known this since he met me. In the past, Stanley always accompanied me to worship, and then he would go home to have a meal with his parents. Last year, Stanley broke his promise to me for the first time. He told me temporarily that he had something at the company and couldn't accompany me. I understood that it was not easy for him at the beginning of his business venture and said nothing. Unexpectedly, he actually took Mandy home to meet his parents. Now the onlookers are really in for a show. It seems that the man's infidelity was known to the man's parents long ago. The legal wife is still standing here with a big belly, and the mistress has already started calling his parents. At this point, Stanley's father and mother finally couldn't hold back their embarrassment. Stanley's mother rushed to the door in 2 steps and closed it. She turned to look at Stanley, who was crying pitifully, and then put her gaze on me with a blank expression. Suddenly, she smiled. Look, Vivian. This is why my son doesn't like you. Today, when such a big thing happened to Stanley, as his wife, you have no reaction at all. On the contrary, Mandy is wholeheartedly thinking about him. She walked to Mandy's side and helped her sit on a stool. You also know that I didn't agree with you two being together from the beginning. At this point, she still looked me up and down with a contemptuous look. After all, your family background is too different from ours. But Stanley was blind and insisted on marrying you. Now that he has found someone who is really compatible. Although Mandy's family conditions are also average, she is better at listening to Stanley and taking care of him. She is much better than you. I was also angered into laughter. I knew his family was shameless, but I didn't expect them to be so shameless. They still don't know that if it weren't for me investing and pulling resources behind the scenes, Stanley's company wouldn't be so smooth sailing. They always thought that I was dependent on Stanley for a living. Little did they know that I was considering their son's ridiculous dignity. I composed myself, gently stroked my stomach with my hand, and said calmly, "So according to what you mean, you don't want me as your daughter-in-law and the grandchild in my stomach?" Stanley's mother glanced at Mandy's stomach and said proudly, "What's in your stomach is just a girl who is a loser. The real grandson of our Stanley family is in Mandy's stomach." Mandy lowered her head and touched her flat stomach, a shy expression on her face. Hearing this, I completely understood. When I first found out I was pregnant, Stanley and I were both very excited. I lay in his arms and asked, "Honey, do you like a son or a daughter?" At that time, Stanley looked at me lovingly and said, "As long as it's born by you, I like it all." After a while, he continued, "Actually, I hope to have a daughter more. It would be best if she looks like you." I was a bit hesitant. I remembered what his mother said when we got married. The old Stanley family has had only one male descendant for several generations. She required me to give birth to a son for their family after I entered the family, but it seems that your parents prefer a grandson. Stanley's eyes flickered. "You are married to me, not to them. Don't care about them." After hearing these words, I happily kissed him. At that time, my whole heart was on him. So when he proposed to find out the gender in advance, I agreed. The doctor at the clinic examined for a full half an hour. Finally, he told us affirmatively, "Congratulations, it's a baby girl." When I knew that there was really a daughter in my stomach, I saw Stanley's expression freeze for a moment, and then it became the same as usual. Happily, he helped me up from the bed and touched my stomach and said, "Great, it's really a daughter." Now thinking about it, he was deceiving me all along. His parents don't like me, nor do they like the daughter in my stomach. Including him, he also prefers a son. He wavers between me and Mandy, weighing the pros and cons. Perhaps he had long thought about divorcing me. But Mandy set a fire and killed herself before that. So he hates me so much and wants to put me to death. Stanley, since you love her and her child so much, I will fulfill your choice in this life. Maybe you should thank me. I held back the soreness in my heart and said coldly, "Since the words have come to this point, then let's get a divorce. Before the divorce, let's sort things out properly." Stanley was unfaithful first and even had a child with his lover. The property distribution should be in my favor. Although I don't care about Stanley's little money, I don't want to let these people off easily. When they heard me say that I wanted more property, Stanley's father and mother didn't say anything yet, but Mandy couldn't sit still first. She said in a shrill voice, "Vivian, you have such a big face. Since you've been with Stanley, you haven't gone to work and have been a full-time housewife. How can you have the nerve to say you want to divide the property?" I couldn't help rolling my eyes at her. Which dynasty did you travel from? Who said that housewives have no contribution to the family? Although I don't earn money, without me taking care of everything at the back for him, do you think he can live without any worries? At the beginning, it was Stanley who begged me to be a full-time housewife. He said that he is now capable of making money to support me, so I don't need to be so hard. As long as I stay at home and hold the fort for him. So, which aspect of this family inside and outside is not done by me personally? Just talking about Stanley's mother, her health is always giving problems every now and then. He is busy with work. Every time it is me who takes his mother to the hospital. When his mother is hospitalized, I run around. I'm almost doing everything except carrying feces and urine. What else do you want me to do? I really don't have the time and mood to argue with these people. The specific matters of divorce will be negotiated by my lawyer with you. After leaving this sentence, I got up and left this place of right and wrong. Back home again, looking at the house next door that was burned beyond recognition, I really felt heartbroken. The housing price here is extremely expensive. Mandy just burned it down as she pleased. For this loss, I must get it back from her. As for the house we are living in now, it has also been affected by the fire. Remembering the terrifying memories of my past life, I packed 2 sets of change of clothes and went to live in another house under my name. After taking a bath at night, I lay on the bed and touched my stomach in a daze. Today, the baby is exactly 5 months old. After staying in my womb for another 5 months, she will be born. But her father is a beast. For a moment, I hesitated. Should I let her come into this world? At this time, the baby suddenly kicked me hard. I remembered when I gave birth to her in my past life. Originally, I went into labor first. However, after more than 10 hours of labor pain, I still couldn't give birth. I immediately chose a cesarean section. When I saw her for the first time, her wrinkled little face was extremely ugly. But just as Stanley had hoped, this child was surprisingly 9 points similar to me when I was young. At that moment, the joy of being a new mother enveloped me. So much so that I overlooked the fact that Stanley had never held her since the child was born. Probably at that time, when he looked at the baby's face, he would think of me and then hate her because of me. But why? The child is innocent. Her father killed her once in the past life. Should I, as a mother, deprive her of life again this time? This time, Stanley still chooses to pursue true love. And I want to cut off all ties with him completely and then live a peaceful life with my child. I slept extremely soundly this time. When I woke up, it was already 10:30 in the morning. I muted my phone before going to bed last night. Now it shows more than 100 missed calls. All are from Stanley's parents. I called Stanley's mother back. As soon as it was connected, Stanley's mother wailed at the other end, "Vivian, where did you go last night?" Stanley was admitted to the emergency room last night. Now he is still in the ICU. The doctor said he is in danger of life at any time. The ICU costs tens of thousands of yuan a day. Come and pay quickly. I was stunned by Stanley's mother's actions. To be honest, it would be good if I didn't pull out his tube when Stanley is in the ICU now. How can I still expect me to treat his illness? This family is really stupid and bad. Later, Stanley's mother called several more times. I directly pressed the end button and put her on the blacklist. In the afternoon, a strange number called. "Hello, this is Chaoyang Road Police Station. Are you Ms. Vivian?" Stanley's parents actually called the police, saying that I didn't save my own husband when he was dying, and also said that Stanley's money had been cheated by me. Stanley and I have been married for 3 years. I have never been in charge of the financial power. How could all his money be with me? After much thought, I borrowed 2 bodyguards from my uncle and went to the hospital. Stanley's parents and Mandy, who looked sickly, were waiting outside the ICU. There were also 2 policemen beside them. When I showed up, Stanley's mother's eyes were red. Shouting like crazy, "Police officer, it's her. This heartless person cheated my son's money and made my son unable to pay for the medical expenses. You quickly arrest her." The policeman took a look at me and asked seriously, "What is your relationship with Stanley?" "Marital relationship." The policeman who asked questions and took notes gave a strange look at me and the 3 people from Stanley's family. Seeing that the 2 police comrades were a little confused about our relationship, I kindly explained for them, "Police comrades, I am Stanley's legal wife. Those 2 over there are Stanley's parents, that is, my father-in-law and mother-in-law. As for the other lady, she is my husband's cheating partner. My husband was injured and admitted to the hospital because he wanted to save her. As for the money, I have been married to my husband for 3 years. Except for necessary household expenses, I have never taken his money. You can investigate this. Now I only have 3,000 yuan in assets under my name. I am willing to take it all out to treat him." After I finished saying these words, several people from Stanley's family exploded. Stanley's mother even wanted to swallow me whole. "You little bitch, who are you lying to? 3,000 yuan, are you treat someone like a beggar? Besides, if my son's money is not given to you, then is it given to a ghost?" At this point, The eyes of the two policemen looking at me were full of sympathy. Okay, we have almost understood the matter. This is all your family matter. It's best to solve it by yourself. After saying that, the two policemen left without looking back. We were left looking at each other. At this time, Stanley's attending doctor came out of the ICU. Who is Stanley's family member? Stanley's parents quickly pushed me forward. Here. This is the patient's wife. The patient is in very bad condition now and is in danger of life at any time. Of course, you family members don't need to worry too much. We doctors will do our best to treat the patient. But you need to discuss the cost well. According to the current situation, prepare $500,000 first. I raised my eyebrows. For Stanley's parents to take out $500,000 is like cutting their flesh. Back then, even the toilet paper they used at home was bought by me online. Now thinking about it, I am really a love-struck fool. I spent so much money for Stanley's family, but they still look down on me. If I had known, I would have used this money to rescue stray dogs. Dogs can still wag their tails at me. They are even worse than dogs. Vivian, did you hear what the doctor said? Hurry up and prepare the money. Stanley's mother anxiously wanted to come and push me. Fortunately, the bodyguard behind me was quick-eyed and quick-handed and blocked in front of me. Vivian, you are really outrageous. How dare you hit your mother-in-law? Stanley's father glared angrily. I found it amusing. Yesterday you still said that you only recognize Mandy as your daughter-in-law. Why? When you need money, I become your daughter-in-law again? Seeing that I was unmoved, Stanley's father changed his tactic. Vivian, do you really want to watch Stanley die? Don't forget that even if you divorce, the child in your belly will still call Stanley father and us grandparents. Bah! Even the child in my belly would find this unlucky after hearing this. I pretended to be persuaded and made a difficult expression on my face, sighing deeply. In fact, it's not that I don't take out the money. It's just that I really don't have any money on hand. Think about it. Since his heart is not with me, how could he give me the money? The meaning of my words was obvious. Stanley's father and mother both turned their gazes to Mandy, who had been silent all along. I had someone investigate before I came. Stanley and Mandy have been secretly in love for 2 years. That is to say, in the first year of our marriage, he had already been unfaithful. In these 2 years, he has transferred nearly $1 million in pocket money to Mandy. Even the house worth $1 million across from us has fallen into Mandy's name. What's even more ridiculous is that after Mandy found out she was pregnant and it was a son, he gradually transferred his property. Now, almost all the money Stanley has earned painstakingly in these years has gone to Mandy's name. I didn't expect that she wouldn't even be willing to take out $500,000 now. It seems that only Stanley took this extramarital affair game seriously. From the beginning to the end, all Mandy wanted was money. Based on the various reactions of Stanley's parents, I guessed that they definitely didn't know that Stanley's money had gone into Mandy's hands. Seeing Stanley's parents' unfriendly expressions, Mandy was so scared that she trembled. Dad, Mom, Stanley did give me a sum of money, but that was for me to have a baby. Stanley's mother was so angry that her face turned blue, and her tone was not as patient as before. Mandy, why are you so stupid? As long as Stanley is cured, can we earn back this mere $500,000? Stop talking. Go and pay the fee quickly. Mandy stammered and tentatively spoke after a long time. Mom, it's not that I'm reluctant to spend this $500,000. You just heard the doctor. Stanley is in danger of life at any time now. I'm afraid that if we spend the money and the person can't be cured in the end, we will end up with nothing. After hearing what Mandy said, the expressions of Stanley's parents both changed. What do you mean? We only have this one son in the Stanley family. Anyway, you pay this $500,000 first, there was no choice. Mandy went to pay the fee dejectedly. But things didn't go as expected. As soon as Mandy paid in this $500,000, doctors rushed into the ward in waves. Stanley's father went to the stairwell to smoke. Stanley's mother was so anxious outside the door that she was jumping up and down. Mandy sat aside, holding her belly weakly. Calculating the time, she is less than 3 months pregnant now. 2 hours later, the doctor came out of the ward looking exhausted and announced that all of Stanley's organs had failed and they had done their best. Finally, we family members were given 10 minutes for farewell. Stanley's father and mother wailed and ran into the ward. Mandy's already pale face became even more colorless. After hesitating for a few seconds, she also followed with tears and gritted teeth. I walked slowly at the end. Stanley is now lying unconscious on the hospital bed with a ventilator covering his mouth and nose. The doctor said that his life now depends on the ventilator. As soon as the ventilator is stopped, he will pass away in a few minutes. The 3 people crowded in front of Stanley's hospital bed, shouting his name loudly, trying to wake him up. Stanley's father and mother cried heartbreakingly. "Son, my son, how will I live in the future?" Looking at Mandy again, she was also crying loudly. I stood at the head of the bed and looked coldly at these people. Suddenly, it seemed that Stanley's mother was so heartbroken that she actually fainted and fell on Stanley. The doctors hurriedly lifted Stanley's mother onto the adjacent bed and began to rescue her. For a moment, Stanley's father didn't know which one to cry over first. Straightforwardly, he simply fainted with his eyes rolled back. At this time, I said coldly to the doctor, "Doctor, please pull out the tube." Mandy held Stanley's hand tightly and cursed. "You liar. You said you would be with me forever." I walked up to Stanley's ear. Whether he could hear me or not, I said softly, "Stanley, it's your turn to atone for me and the child this time. Go to hell." After hearing this sentence, Stanley seemed to have a flash of vitality and widen one's eyes in astonishment, glaring at me furiously. After more than a minute, his heartbeat became a straight line. The doctor came and asked me what to do with Stanley's body. At present, it seems that I am the only remaining immediate family member of Stanley who is still standing. I said indifferently, "Take it to the funeral parlor and burn it." When I left, Mandy was still crying. Her crying gave me a headache. Stanley's parents and Mandy arrived at the funeral parlor the next day. At this time, Stanley was only left with a box of ashes. Stanley's mother's hair had turned white overnight and she seemed to have aged 20 years. Stanley's father is no better. The 2 of them supported each other and walked to the memorial tablet. Looking at Stanley's urn, Stanley's mother said with red eyes, "Vivian, you are so cruel. My son just died and you burned him?" I kept clicking the screen and burning electronic paper money. "Otherwise? Don't forget that I haven't divorced Stanley yet." Mandy's tears fell as soon as she said it. "Vivian, you are too cruel. Stanley just died. How can you burn him just because you want to?" I looked up at her. "Why? Otherwise, do you want to bury Stanley at your house? As long as I haven't divorced him, you will always be a mistress." Mandy was so choked by me that she couldn't say a word. Seeing this, Stanley's mother immediately came up to help. "Vivian, what are you talking about? Mandy is pregnant with Stanley's son anyway. She is a great contributor to our Stanley family." I was amused by anger. I slowly took out the property division list drafted by my lawyer last night from my bag. This lists every sum of our joint property after marriage between me and Stanley. I thoughtfully printed 3 copies of the property division list and distributed them to the 3 of them respectively. "Mandy, every penny Stanley spent on you in the past 2 years is our joint property. I have the right to ask you to return it. As for Stanley's little inheritance, after I take it back from Mandy, we will divide it equally among the 4 of us." Mandy screamed and stuck out her belly. "This is Stanley's son and me. Stanley has long said that all his property will be given to our son." Stanley's father and Stanley's mother nodded repeatedly. "Yes, yes. Mandy is carrying the only heir of our Stanley family." Is there Stanley's child in her belly? How can it be proved? I smiled. Mandy was anxious. "This is Stanley's child. If you don't believe me, we can do a paternity test." Oh? But Stanley has already been burned to ashes. How can we do it? Fool. Stanley's mother shouted loudly, "We won't argue with you so much. Anyway, we won't pay back this money." I got up and clapped my hands, saying helplessly, "Okay, then let's see each other in court. Before the lawsuit over Stanley's inheritance, we, along with the owners almost affected by the last fire, sued Mandy in court. The investigation results of the last fire have come out. All clues prove that Mandy intentionally set the fire. Eventually, it directly led to Stanley's death, and the houses of many owners in the community were damaged to varying degrees. Mandy explained crying in court that at that time, she just wanted to pretend to set fire and commit suicide to scare Stanley. Because Stanley had originally agreed to divorce me but kept delaying it. She couldn't wait any longer and resorted to this desperate measure. She didn't mean to kill Stanley. Due to clear facts and conclusive evidence, the judge pronounced in court that Mandy was guilty of intentional arson and caused 1 death and multiple property losses. Finally, Mandy was sentenced to 7 years in prison and ordered to compensate the owners for their losses. Originally, considering that Mandy was still in pregnancy, she could apply for execution outside prison. But the day after Mandy returned to Stanley's house, she had a miscarriage unexpectedly. Later, I learned that after Stanley's father and Stanley's mother learned that their son was actually killed by Mandy, they had an argument with her. In the heat of the moment, Stanley's mother pushed Mandy. Logically speaking, Mandy had been pregnant for nearly 4 months and wouldn't have a miscarriage just from a fall. But Mandy had a hard time throughout her pregnancy and was too depleted in the early stage. This fall made her see red. Stanley's parents hurriedly sent Mandy to the hospital. The doctor just said that they would do their best to save the fetus. Stanley's mother was almost kneeling and kowtowing to the doctor. In the end, she didn't save the only heir of the Stanley family. Mandy gave birth to a stillborn baby. The doctor showed it to Stanley's father and Stanley's mother. Sure enough, it was a son. At this moment, Stanley's mother was so angry that she directly spat out a mouthful of old blood and then fainted. Mandy had just had an abortion operation and was sued by me in court again. This time, I advocated that Mandy return every transfer my husband Stanley gave her in the past 2 years. In court, Mandy said to me with a pale face, "Vivian, I have already received my due punishment. Can't you let me go?" Can't. Since you have chosen this path, you should have the courage to bear this consequence. In my previous life, because of her own recklessness, she indirectly killed me and my child. That night, the fire was raging. My daughter, who was just 5 days old, was in my arms. Every window in the house was locked in advance by Stanley. No matter how I cried and begged, Stanley refused to open the door and watched me and my daughter be burned to death. Finally, Mandy sold that house at a low price. She also sold various luxury goods and jewelry that Stanley had given her over the years and transferred the money to me. There was still 1 million left. Finally, in the presence of a judge, she gave me an IOU. Everything has settled down. I transferred the share of the inheritance belonging to Stanley's parents to their bank card. Soon it was time for my due date. This time I directly chose a cesarean section and suffered a lot less. At the same time as in my previous life, my daughter was born crying. The doctor held her in front of me, and I gently touched her forehead. My aunt took care of me during the confinement period. I originally planned to hire a confinement nurse or go directly to a confinement center, but my aunt said she was worried and came to take care of me in person. My heart was warmed. On the day of my daughter's full moon banquet, Stanley's parents lingered outside for a long time. In the end, they didn't come in. They just asked a waiter to send me a red envelope. Inside was a bank card and a longevity lock. When my daughter was 3 years old, Stanley's mother was critically ill. Before she died, she wanted to see her granddaughter. After much hesitation, I still took the child to the hospital. At the moment she saw her granddaughter, Stanley's mother shed tears. Looking at her daughter, her eyes were full of love and regret.